Hi, thanks for watching another episode of Marion Brush TV. Today we're going to be talking about the Bullfrog Trac II M-Series system. Now the cool thing about this M-Series system is it does have a power unit. It's a take on our standard Bullfrog system, which is pulled across the slab via ropes, hand over hand. This system is going to allow you to do larger, wider slabs because there's not a person releasing rope and a person taking up rope. All the users simply have to do is put tension on the line like a zip line, and it allows the tool to go from point A to point B. So increase your pore sizes a little bit with this system versus the standard Bullfrog Trac II. Another super cool benefit about this is accuracy. So instead of focusing on hand over hand pulling, which can kind of get a little bit wobbly as you get fatigued, with this system, you're going to be able to pull straight and that tool is just going to go from point A to point B. So that's going to improve the accuracy quite a bit on your slab. Another real nice benefit is it's going to reduce, obviously, the amount of arm strain that the user has. So you're leaving the pour with a little bit less arm strain, makes the job easier, gets the job done with a little bit happier worker. This video is not going to be all-inclusive. It's kind of a 101 video. We really encourage everybody, watch the video, but also read through your user's manual if you've purchased this tool. That'll get you started. Okay, let's talk about what comes with the Bullfrog Trac II M-Series system when you purchase it. So first off, of course, you're going to get the power unit, which is going to have that fractional horsepower motor built in. It's allowing you to go from point A to point B with it self-propelled. You're also going to get a battery and a charger. Both of these are really high quality. We didn't mess around with those. You're also going to get 2 tracking lines. Now these tracking lines are a specialized rope that are going to go through the power unit, allow it to confidently go from point A to point B across your slab. And then we're also going to include standard clipped lines. Now the clipped lines are going to go on the tracking eye bolts here at the end. Those are designed to allow you to have a way out. If you get into a situation where you've got a bad plug, somebody goes to charge up the battery, they don't realize it, the battery doesn't get charged, and you get out to the slab and you have no way to float your slab. The clipped lines are going to allow you to operate this tool like a standard Bullfrog Trac II system. So you're just going to be manually pulling it over the slab. It's also going to come with the mechanism. Now this is kind of like the standard mechanism with our Bullfrog Trac II, the original version. The neat thing about these mechanisms is when the system's pulling itself from point A to point B, it's going to allow those floats to tilt up. So as the unit moves in one direction, those floats are going to tilt up and allow it to not dig into the slab. You're also going to get your floats, of course. Now, with the floats, we typically recommend the flat ribbed floats, and those are available in 4-foot and 6-foot widths. But if you want to specify for a C-channel float, you can also do that. Those are available in 4-foot and 6-foot widths as well. We're also going to throw in a bag of these, we call them rope squeegees, but basically they're going to go on the tracking rope right here in between the tracking eye bolt and the power unit. Those are going to pull off incidental pieces of material that get cling on to your tracking rope. You shouldn't get a lot of that, but these will be on there just to protect the power unit from excess pull-in material and debris. All right, when you're unboxing your power unit, the first thing that you'll need to do is attach your tracking clamp extensions. It's going to come with 2 of these, one for each side of the power unit. Now I've attached the one on the right-hand side, and you can notice that the tracking eye bolt is going to be in the up position towards the lid, up towards the lid of the power unit. It's good to note also, while we've got the unit out here like this, that there is a battery side to the power unit, and then there's a motor side to the power unit. There's also this neat little notch in the front of this mounting bar. This notch side is what we call the front of the power unit. So I'm going to attach the tracking clamp extension to the front of the power unit now. When that tracking clamp extension comes, it's going to have these nuts. So I'm just going to take these nuts off of here, and then I'm going to attach this to this notched side. And what I like to do is put a little bit of pressure towards the power unit when I'm doing this, and that makes sure that this bar is going to be level as possible. And then we're just going to attach both of those nuts, and then we're going to tighten those down. And once we know that our bar is level, we're going to snug it real good and tight. All right, next it's time to attach the power unit to the mechanism. Now there's a couple of things to note about this. With the tracking clamp extensions, now you're able to universally attach the power unit to our Bullfrog Trac II M-Series, as well as to our Bigfoot M-Series and to our Chameleon Trac II M-Series. So we're pretty excited about that factor. Also, when you're connecting this, you want to make note there's these white washers here. So we want to be able to attach the power unit to this side where the white washers are. Those are going to give us clearance so that when the mechanism is pivoting from one side to the other, there's enough clearance for all of the nuts and bolts to be able to move freely. You want everything to move and pivot smoothly. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this power unit up here. And one thing that we're going to notice here is this notch that we mentioned in the previous take. There's the word notch right down here on the leverage bar. So we want to make sure that that notch is on the same side as the word notch on the leverage bar. We're just going to attach this here. These are our mounting holes, 3/8 inch holes here. And then you're also going to notice that there's a couple of holes on the inside here. These holes are designed for compatibility with the Chameleon Trac II system, the M-Series Chameleon. So you won't be using those right now, but if you do ever convert to a Chameleon Trac II, you will utilize those holes for standard bar configuration, depending on which color of brush you use. But now we're just focused on getting that attached right there. We're going to go ahead and put these nuts on here. And then what you want to do is use a 9/16 inch set of wrenches, and you're going to snug these down, but you don't want to over tighten them, because if you tighten them too much, you're going to lose all of your pivot in your mechanism. So we want to tighten them up and then just back them off the slightest bit. That'll allow you to get a full amount of pivot, a full range of motion with your mechanism when you're running it out on the slab. All right, now that you've got the power unit connected to the mechanism, it's time to connect it to your floats. And what I usually do as a general rule is just to set the floats about shoulder width apart. And then you're going to take your mechanism and you're going to lift it up and set it down over these white riser blocks that are on the ribbed floats here. Now, it's good to note, if you have C-channel floats, you won't have those riser blocks on there. Those base feet are just going to go over the top of the C-channels. So then you're going to take a 1/2 inch nut driver and you're just going to secure this evenly on all 4 of the bolts on each of the base feet. You want to evenly tighten those, and you don't need to go too crazy with those. You want them to be tight enough, you want them to be snug, but you don't want to go too tight because it's unnecessary to go that wild. But once you get those attached, then you're ready to get out there and feed your line. All right, for loading the rope, the first thing that you want to make sure of is that your power unit is off and your battery is disengaged. I always harp on this because you don't want to have a situation where your power unit's exposed and you get your hands in places that they shouldn't be and you have problems. So the first way to know if your power unit's off is there's a green LED here on the side. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on so that you can kind of see that LED is illuminated green. That's a clear sign that your power unit's on and your battery's connected. So we don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to go under here and disconnect our battery. And then what I'm going to do is take the battery off completely. And that way I can see it. I know that we're not connected. So of course, no power light, battery's disconnected. Now it's safe to take the lid off of the power unit. So what we're going to do to take that lid off is we're just going to pull this pin, and then we're going to rotate the lid counterclockwise. That's going to disengage the clasp that holds the lid on, and then we'll just set that off to the side. Now what's inside of the power unit, you're going to see there's a lot of electronics here, and it's a good time to start talking about some of the features here. So we've got a fuse that's designed for deactivating the tool in the event that we have too much power being pulled from the system. We have a rope that's got a lot of debris on it, or we have some sort of a knot or a fray on the rope. It's going to shut the power unit off to protect the user as well as the power unit. We've also got our on-off switch, which is here. That's just a left-right switch, very easy, on and off. And then we have our directional switch here. This is going to tell the tool which direction to go. It's very simple. So when the switch is going that direction, the tool is going to want to go that direction. When we flip it the other direction, the tool is going to want to traverse that direction on the rope. Another neat feature that's important to mention is our battery alert system. Now this system is in place to help the user know when the battery is getting close to being kaput. It's time to replace the battery. You don't want to be in a situation where you're out on the slab, your battery dies, and you have to pull the unit off of the slab. It's just better to know in advance. So we know that. So as you're operating the tool, you're going to have your LED here. That's going to glow green when the power is good on the tool. As you're using the tool, eventually what will start to happen is the tool LED will start to turn red. This is an indication that we're starting to get a little bit of battery used up, but it's not quite an indication that it's time to replace the battery. Now, as we start to see that light become more prominent, if we see that light up red for the full duration of your pass, then that's when we know it's time to change the battery. Coupled with this LED, we also have a buzz alert, which is an audio alert. That's also going to start to chirp periodically throughout the slab as we have power surges, more power, less power. But as we get to the point where the battery does need replaced, you'll notice that chirp is going to be constantly chirping for the full duration of a pass. So in other words, if that is chirping from the time you start your pass to the time that you end the pass, it is time to, in fact, change your battery. That is most of the items that you need to know about inside the power unit itself. Now let's load some rope. So the first thing we want to do is load the rope into the outer eyelet. That's our tracking clamp. And then we're going to go ahead and load our rope squeegee. Now again, these are just a rubber washer designed to pull incidental debris off of the ropes. We're using a high quality 1/4-inch braided polyester rope. It's going to wick a lot less. It's going to stretch a lot less than a typical nylon rope. So it's a special rope for the tracking line. Then we're going to depress the guide tube. We're going to load the rope into the outer brass, and then we're going to feed it through. We're going to also depress this side guide tube, and we're going to see that it's going to go out the other side of the power unit. Now this is the time we want to throw the rope squeegee on the other side. And these rope squeegees, again, they're just going to pass back and forth between the outer tracking eyelet and the power unit as you're operating your tool. We're going to feed this through the outer tracking eye. And then what I'm going to do is pull approximately 10 feet through. 10 to 15 feet is great. The shorter side of the rope is going to be the side that you want to start the tool from. And that's going to get your rope into the tool. Now let's talk about engaging the rope. This is where we engage the traction, and our AR friction wheel is going to do that trick here. So I'm going to loosen the hardware, these two wing nuts, slide out the rope guide, which is this black piece here, and then we're going to go take both fingers and we're going to floss this rope down into the slot in this rope guide. And you'll see there's a visible slot there. We want to get that rope all the way into that slot. And then there's two orange stopper bolts right here under the AR friction wheel. We want to make sure that this rope guide is butting up directly against those orange stopper bolts. So we're going to put a little bit of pressure on that to make sure that we're right up against there. The rope is fully engaged with the AR friction wheel. And then at that point, while we're putting a little force on there, we want to tighten our wing nuts. And I'm going to tighten these really good because I don't want my rope guide to slide away from the AR friction wheel. In general operation, when your rope's clean, we want to have that nice and tight. That way it will make a solid connection between the AR friction wheel and your rope. At that point, you've got a good solid connection and you're ready to go to the next step. All right, let's talk about the battery and the charger that come with your M-Series system. Now we made sure that we put the really high quality battery into the mix here because we know it's really important to have enough power out on the slab and something that's not going to be weak or failing on you. So we've got this high quality EarthX battery. This has a built-in BMS, battery management system. That's going to protect this from ultimately failing out on the slab should you get in a situation where there's some sort of a parasitic drain or something that's going to pull the battery down to a really low level and cause catastrophic failure. This battery won't do that. It's also going to run your tool for 10 to 12,000 square feet. So if you're out on a job, 10 to 12,000 square feet is a pretty good sized pour, but some folks out there are doing 20, 30, 40,000 square foot jobs. If you're doing, say, a 30,000 square foot job, you're going to want to have 3 of these batteries charged up and on site ready to go. That way you're not having to mess around with plugging a battery into an inverter and hoping that the inverter works and you have an issue with power out on your job site. That's never good. Also the charger itself. This charger is going to charge this battery. It's got a really neat optimizing system. The charger manual that comes with it is going to show you all of its features. So take a look at that. One really neat feature about this is it's got really good, easy to read LEDs on the front. So it helps you understand the state of the charge. Also, it has the BMS reset button. The nice thing about that is if the battery does go into a BMS state where it's not pushing power out of the battery anymore as a protective mechanism, the charger is going to recognize that it's in that state and pull it out of that state and begin charging it effectively again. So let's go ahead and connect the battery to the charger and then the charger to the wall, and we'll see what it looks like. So I always recommend starting with plugging the battery into the charger, and then you're going to plug the charger into the wall. And what that's going to do is allow the charger to notice the state of the battery and assess the state of the battery properly. In this case, we've got a power light here telling us that the charger is working. And then we've got a blue light here showing that the battery is beginning to be charged. You'll see those consistent lights on when the process is happening. That will help you understand at what state the battery's in. Are we in the save mode? Are we in charge mode? Or is the charge complete? Very easy system, and it's going to keep your battery running for a long time. All right, now that our rope is fed and our battery's charged, it's time to reconnect our lid. So we're going to notice on the front of the lid, we've got this hole. That's going to be consistent with the front of the power unit. Remember, that's consistent with the notch on this mount bar. So we're going to engage the back part of our lid with this notch hole in the back of the power unit. And once that's inserted into that slot, the lid's a little bit off center. We're going to rotate that lid clockwise, and that's going to engage the lid in the front. That's going to give you a nice firm connection. Then we're going to drop the pin down through our pin lock tube, and that's going to get it locked so that it doesn't come loose during your operation. Now let's reconnect our battery. The way we're going to do that, you'll notice that there's a piece of all-weather Velcro on the back side of the battery. That's just going to give us a little stability when we're first connecting the battery. And then I'm going to take this bungee cord, run that up, and connect that through the eye bolt. And then we're just going to go ahead and connect our power at this point. Once that's connected, we're ready to start operation. All right, when it's time to take the tool out for operation, you're just going to carry the power unit and your mechanism out to the slab, set it down where you're going to begin. Like I mentioned before, it's always good to start out on the side with the least amount of rope. That's how I usually like to start. And then you're going to position the other side of the rope on the other side of the slab. One thing that's important as well, one way to keep your rope ideally clean is to stake a piece of rebar on each side of the slab, somewhere towards the middle of the slab, and maybe a foot or 2 feet outside of the slab in the dirt. That way, when the tool's resting, you're in between passes, the tool's sitting there, the Fresno guys or the screeders are ahead of you. That's a good time for you to tie that rope off. So the long section of rope that's off, instead of letting it lay in the slab and accumulate material, you don't want it to do that. So you want to take that and tie it off on a piece of rebar at the other side of your slab, and that will keep the rope nice and tight and up and out of your slab. Really important to keep that rope clean. So when you've positioned the system on the edge of your slab, you're ready to start operation. The power unit is on. We want to use this directional switch to tell the tool which direction to go. So I want it to go that way. That's going to be the starting point of my slab. So I'm going to flip that directional switch going that direction. That means when the tool engages, it's going to go that way. What I also recommend doing is pressing the unit forward. So what we're going to do is press the power unit forward. That's going to lift up the floats so they're not digging into your slab, and that's going to get the suction broken off so that you're not having a lot of digging problems or sticking problems. So once that's happened, the tool is on, it's ready to go, but we have a system called Intuition Drive. Now, the neat thing about Intuition Drive is it allows both users to be able to start and stop the tool at whatever point they wish to. So because I'm on the starting side and that person on the other side is on the receiving side, the tool's going to wait until we put the correct amount of tension on the rope. Once it senses the correct amount of tension, it's going to start the tool down the slab. Now, on the starting side, you always want to start low. That's going to keep this back float from lifting up off of your slab. So the person on the starting side is really going to be able to control the down pressure on that float. So we're going to start low. The user on the receiving side is going to start as high as they want to. The tool will traverse towards them. And then once the receiving side gets the tool, they're going to keep that nice tension on the rope. When they're ready to receive that tool, they can reach down. We've got these, what we call enhanced cable grabs. These are going to help you feather the tool off of the slab. So I'm going to reach my hand down here. I'm going to grab a hold of that cable grab, and that'll allow me to lift the tool off the slab. Now, one thing that you want to do, and a lot of users will do this differently, you can just drop the rope at whichever point you want the tool to stop on the receiving side. So if I want my tool to stop, I can just drop my rope or release tension. The tool will deactivate, and then I can feather it off the slab. You can also leave a little bit of pressure on it while you're feathering if you want the motor unit to help assist you in pulling the unit off of the slab, but that's a personal preference. As it's coming back to me on the other side, we've pressed the unit forward, lifted suction, and now I'm on the receiving side. As the unit's coming back towards me, I do the same thing. It's overlapped, generally about 6 inches from the previous pass. I'm going to come down here. Once it's in close range, I can either grab from the handle of the unit or grab my cable grab, deactivate the system by dropping my rope, and then feather it off the slab. That's pretty much what you need to know about operation. All right, let's talk about the type of rope that comes with your M-Series system. Now, we include two 100-foot polyester 1/4-inch tracking ropes with this system. It's a solid braid polyester. Polyester is going to have great abrasion resistance. It's a high quality rope. It's not going to stretch as much as a typical nylon rope. And it's also not going to wick material into the rope as much as a standard rope would. So you want to make sure and get a high quality rope. You can purchase rope from your local hardware store, or you can purchase it from Marion Brush Manufacturing Company. You just want to make sure that if you're getting it from a local store, that you're getting 1/4-inch solid braid polyester rope. Now, when you purchase it from Marion Brush Manufacturing Company, your tracking lines are going to be polished. We make sure and polish those 100-footers. That way it makes it a lot easier to feed into the system. Another thing that I like to tell folks about the rope is, even though it's tempting while you're operating your tool, you don't want to wrap the rope around your hand while you're running the tool. It's a powerful unit, and it needs to be able to motorize the tool from point A to point B across the slab. But when you wrap the rope around your hand, you can get yourself into a pinch point when it's time to drop and deactivate the tool. It's cumbersome to release that rope. So if you're just holding the rope like this, or you've got a glove and you're holding it nice and tight, it's a lot easier to deactivate the tool and release the rope. Another thing I tell folks is staking the rope up out of the slab. Of course, there's going to be time when the tool's resting on one side of the pour or the other side of the pour while the screeding folks are getting done with what they're doing. While that's happening, it's a great idea to put a piece of rebar in the sides of the pour. That way you can tie up the long side of the rope onto the rebar. That'll keep it from dangling down into the slurry and getting a bunch of material built up on your rope. The tool is powerful enough to pull the tool when the rope is wet, but once that concrete dries on your rope, it's going to turn into a rock, and it's going to go through your power unit, cause damage, blow fuses, do things that you don't want it to do. So keeping your ropes clean is the most important way to operate the M-Series system. Rope's cheap, so if you have a messed up piece of rope, go ahead and throw it out, put a new rope system into your power unit, and you'll be good to go. All right, now with all the work done, it's time to clean your M-Series unit. We recommend doing that, of course, after each pour. It depends on how much buildup you have on the tool itself. A lot of times you're just going to get buildup on your floats. So you can remove the floats by just loosening the base feet bolts on each side. Once you loosen those, you can take the mechanism and the power unit up off of your floats and hose those suckers down. If you do find that you get buildup material on the mechanism itself, you can remove the power unit from the mechanism by just loosening these nuts and pulling your power unit off, setting it off to the side. Then you can use a tube brush or some kind of a brush to agitate the material and hose it off. That way you get all of the material out of the pulley areas and the sensitive areas of the mechanism. Once those areas are clean, a lot of times I recommend folks to just use some WD-40 or some kind of a lubricant in all of these contact areas where we have cables. As they're moving, we want them to move freely and pivot smoothly. So a little bit of lubricant in there won't hurt to help things move smoothly over the years. As far as cleaning up the power unit itself, we've got more sensitive materials in here. We've got wires and batteries and things like that. So I always recommend using a damp cloth. You shouldn't get a lot of material in your power unit anyway if your ropes are clean. But if you do get some dust and some incidentals in there, it's always good to take the power unit lid off, get in there with maybe a spray can of air, spray air, or you can agitate with a tube brush, get into the rope guide tubes and clean those out a little bit. And a damp cloth will do a good job at getting all of that dust out of there. I always recommend disconnecting your battery. If you're going to be taking this lid off, always disconnect the battery. That way you won't get in a situation where you've got things activating when they shouldn't be activating, when your hands are places that they shouldn't be. So deactivate the tool, pull the battery off, and then take your lid off, and you're free to clean. That should do it for getting the tool clean, and then you're ready to go. Once you charge that battery, you're ready to get out for the next pour. Hey, thanks for watching the video on the Bullfrog Trac II M-Series system. If you have any additional questions on operation or where to purchase the tool, reach out to your local distributor, or you can contact us here at Marion Brush Manufacturing Company, 1-800-930-9062. Happy finishing.